It began with a whisper. A quiet murmur swept across Washington, D.C., echoing through the marbled hallways of the Capitol like a coming storm. Something big was coming, something that could rattle the very core of American politics. The name on everyone's lips? Nancy Pelosi. And the man rumored to be leading the charge against her? Senator Ted Cruz. It all started with a leaked memo. A seemingly insignificant email from a mid-level staffer had surfaced online, pointing toward questionable overseas financial transactions involving shell companies in the Cayman Islands. The kicker? One of the signatories was none other than someone closely tied to Pelosi's inner circle. Cruz, always the tactician, smelled blood in the water. He wasn't just going to bring it up during a press conference. No, he wanted answers under oath, under lights, and under the gaze of the American public. He pushed for a Senate Oversight Committee emergency session. Reluctantly, Democrats agreed, brushing it off as another Cruz stunt. But Cruz wasn't bluffing. The hearing was set for Thursday morning. The nation watched with bated breath. Reporters camped outside the Capitol as early as 5 a.m., hoping to catch a glimpse of what was being dubbed the showdown on the Hill. Inside the chamber, tension rippled through the air. Cruz sat composed, wearing his signature navy blue suit, eyes fixed on the stack of files in front of him. Across from him sat Pelosi, cool and defiant, her decades of political savvy worn like armor. "Senator Cruz," the committee chair said, nodding. "You have the floor." Cruz adjusted his microphone and began, voice calm but sharp like a scalpel. "Madam Speaker," he began, "you've served this nation for decades. You've championed causes, shaped laws. But today we're not here to talk about your public service. We're here to examine a trail of corruption that may lead to the very core of your operation." A collective gasp swept through the room. Pelosi smirked, "With all due respect, Senator, I hope you've come with more than right-wing blog rumors and conspiracy theories." Cruz leaned forward, sliding a document across the table. "This is a wire transfer dated August 14, 2024. It involves $1.7 million moving from a Hong Kong-based investment group into an entity called Golden Horizon Trust, registered under your husband's name, Paul Pelosi." Her smile faded. "Innocent people don't smirk when confronted with facts, Madam Speaker," Cruz pressed. Pelosi's attorney, seated beside her, immediately objected, "This is an ambush. These documents weren't submitted before the hearing." But Cruz, ever prepared, slammed a binder onto the desk. "I have 27 more like it. All authenticated. All following the same pattern, money moved through offshore accounts, through companies tied to policy decisions voted on right here in Congress." The room erupted into murmurs. Cruz wasn't done. "These financial transactions coincided with your support of international infrastructure bills that quietly favored the entities involved in those transfers." Pelosi's expression turned from defiance to something else, calculating. "Senator Cruz," she said coldly, "you're dangerously close to slander." Cruz smiled thinly. "If it's slander, prove it. Deny the transactions. Deny the connections. Because if you can't, we're not just talking ethics violations, we're talking federal crimes." The room went silent. Outside, news anchors reported the explosive developments in real time. Social media platforms lit up. #Pelosi hearing began trending on X within minutes. The hearing was only just beginning, but the storm had already broken. Cameras zoomed in as Cruz flipped open the next set of documents like a prosecutor preparing for the final blow in a courtroom drama. The air inside the chamber grew tense, the kind of tension you could slice with a butter knife. Every eye was on Cruz. Every pen was poised. In October 2023, Cruz began a $2.3 million wire from Starlink Trade Group, a shell company traced back to Dubai, was deposited into a Delaware-based LLC named Green Cedar Holdings. This company, according to business registration records, shares an address with your son's consulting firm, Ms. Pelosi. He paused for effect. "And that same month, you advocated for relaxed trade tariffs with Middle Eastern solar exporters. Convenient timing, don't you think?" Pelosi didn't flinch. "You're connecting dots that aren't there, Senator," she said with calm precision. "You're trying to weaponize business associations into conspiracy. It's beneath this committee." "Oh, I'm just getting started," Cruz replied. He turned to a large screen behind him and clicked a remote. An email appeared, projected for all to see. From Daniel@greensterholdings.com to Pelosi@congress.gov. Subject: Confirmation of funds received. Date: October 17, 2023. Funds have been successfully received. We should move on the regulatory front ASAP, as discussed. The room fell into dead silence. Even some Democrats shifted uncomfortably. Cruz continued, "Your son's email explicitly connects receipt of funds to expected regulatory action. That's not a business coincidence. That's quid pro quo." Pelosi's eyes narrowed. "That email isn't from my son," she snapped. Cruz responded coolly. "We had it verified by a digital forensics team, IP address, server location, metadata. It all checks out. Would you like to see the report?" Before Pelosi could respond, the committee chair leaned forward. "Madam Speaker, would you like to formally respond to these claims under oath?" "I already am under oath," she snapped, her voice tinged with anger. "And yes, I deny any wrongdoing. My family's business dealings are independent of my public duties." Cruz raised an eyebrow. "Then I'm sure you'll have no issue with releasing your tax returns and financial disclosures for the past 5 years. Full transparency." Pelosi's face stiffened. "My filings comply with all legal requirements." "Legal, perhaps," Cruz said, "but not ethical." From the back of the room, a young Republican aide whispered to his colleague, "He's cornering her. She's on defense now." Reporters furiously typed away on their laptops, pushing updates to millions of Americans who were glued to the unfolding drama. People at coffee shops, in cars, even at airports paused to watch the interrogation live on their phones. Across the nation, Americans saw something they hadn't seen in years. Washington's elite being grilled with no mercy. Then, the unexpected happened. Senator Cruz leaned back and said, "One more thing. This is a sworn affidavit from your former staffer, Marie Dalston. She alleges she was ordered to sanitize certain documents before they were submitted to the Ethics Committee. Would you like me to read her statement out loud?" Pelosi's composure finally cracked. Her eyes darted toward her attorney, then toward the chair. "Objection," her lawyer barked. "This is character assassination based on hearsay." Cruz stood up. "This isn't hearsay. This is testimony. And if it's false, then Marie Dalston has committed perjury, something I'm sure she wouldn't do lightly." Pelosi shifted in her seat. The chair banged the gavel. "Order. Order." But the message was clear. The hunter had found the scent, and he wasn't letting go. The committee room buzzed like a hornet's nest as the name Marie Dalston rang through the chamber. No one saw her coming. Not the press, not the Democrats, and certainly not Pelosi. Marie had once been a quiet, behind-the-scenes scheduler in Pelosi's D.C. office. She had access to internal communications, meeting records, and scheduling logs, the kind of details most people ignored. Until they mattered. Until now. Cruz clicked to the next document on the screen. A notarized affidavit signed just 2 days before the hearing. "In my role as assistant scheduler to Speaker Nancy Pelosi, I was instructed on multiple occasions to delete or modify calendar entries that could suggest coordination between congressional activity and private investor meetings. I was told, verbatim, 'We don't need any footprints leading back here.'" Marie Dalston, March 30th, 2025. The room reacted like a pressure cooker just exploded. Nancy's attorney stood, protesting. "This is an ambush. You've had this affidavit for days and withheld it until now." Cruz didn't miss a beat. "We made it available to committee staff the moment it was notarized. If your team didn't review it, that's on you." Pelosi finally broke her silence. Marie Dalston was fired for insubordination. She's a disgruntled former staffer. Are we seriously giving her a national platform to grind an axe? Cruz leaned in, voice low and deliberate. "Funny. According to HR records, she resigned. No mention of insubordination. In fact, your own office gave her a glowing exit review." Pelosi was cornered again. This time, she had no quick retort. Then came the curveball. Cruz tapped his binder and said, "Let's talk about July 2022. You had a private dinner at the Jefferson Hotel with 3 men. One from the Chinese energy conglomerate Jinlong Ventures, one from a Silicon Valley lobbying group, and one registered foreign agent from Qatar. None of those meetings appeared on your congressional calendar. Care to explain?" Pelosi blinked. "That dinner was a private social gathering, unrelated to official business." Cruz nodded. And yet, 3 weeks later, you championed a bill that fast-tracked energy investments for foreign partners. And what do you know? Jinlong Ventures was one of the first to benefit. A voice from the back gasped, audible even through the packed hearing room. This is the very definition of conflict of interest, Cruz said. And at worst, it's bribery hidden under the veil of legislative power. Pelosi sat in silence. For the first time in her career, she looked uncertain, shaken. Then, like clockwork, the whistleblower herself was brought into the room. Marie Dalston, clad in a modest navy blazer, walked in with the confidence of someone who had nothing left to lose. She was sworn in and sat before the microphone. Her voice was calm, clear, and resolute. I came forward not because I have a political agenda, but because I believe the American people deserve honesty, she began. I was asked to cover up meetings, delete digital records, and backdate certain memos. I kept copies because I feared this day might come. Gasps filled the room. Cruz gave her space to speak. For nearly 10 minutes, Marie outlined instances where Pelosi's team pressured her to manipulate congressional records, meetings with tech CEOs, foreign diplomats, and private contractors whose companies later received federal grants or exemptions. When she finished, Cruz looked directly at Pelosi. Do you still claim there's no coordination between your political power and financial interests? Pelosi, pale now, simply said, I want a recess. The chair shook his head. We're not done yet. America watched as the walls closed in around one of the most powerful political figures of the last half-century. The committee chair's denial of recess sent a clear message: no escape. No hiding behind staffers. No sidestepping with technicalities. The American people were watching, and for once, the show wasn't scripted. Senator Cruz stood once more, eyes locked onto Pelosi. Speaker Pelosi, he said, dropping the honorific intentionally, this isn't just about calendar entries or quiet dinners with foreign donors. This is about influence, raw, unchecked influence peddled for power, favors, and profit. And now we have a whistleblower with hard evidence, financial trails backed by forensic accountants, and multiple witnesses ready to testify. He turned to the clerk, who placed a thick, sealed envelope on the desk. These are financial records subpoenaed from First Bank of San Francisco tied to the Green Cedar Holdings account. Within it, there are over 12 transfers from international companies connected to policy changes you pushed through between 2021 and 2024. Cruz let the moment linger. And strangely, 8 of those companies contributed large sums to your super PAC just weeks before your last re-election campaign. Pelosi didn't answer. Not right away. Her lips parted like she was about to speak, but nothing came out. The Speaker of the House, once the most powerful woman in American politics, was silenced by the weight of receipts, records, and reality. Then, like a snake striking in the tall grass, she snapped back. Senator Cruz, what you are conducting is a political inquisition, not a legal one. I've served this country for decades. I've buried friends in Arlington, walked through broken glass to pass healthcare for millions, and fought autocrats in every corner of Washington. And now, because of some shaky testimony and partisan theatrics, you think you can assassinate my character. Cruz stood calm, composed, and deadly serious. I'm not here to assassinate anyone's character, Madam Speaker. I'm here to uncover the truth. He turned to the chair. I move to issue a subpoena for all internal communications, encrypted messages, burner phone logs, and meeting notes from Speaker Pelosi's congressional and campaign offices from 2020 through 2024. There was a pause, then murmurs. The chair, a moderate Democrat known for his even keel, looked visibly torn. Pelosi slammed her hand on the desk. You will regret this. But it was too late. The chair responded, motion is under review. We'll consult with legal counsel. The floodgates had opened. Outside the Capitol, it was already madness. Protesters gathered by the hundreds, some calling for Pelosi to resign, others claiming Cruz was staging a political coup. The media didn't know which way to spin it, so they spun it all. Ted Cruz exposes political web, Pelosi under fire, whistleblower shocks Capitol Hill. Fox News ran a cheerin that read, Ted Cruz torches Pelosi, walls closing in. MSNBC countered with, GOP witch hunt or real corruption? Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram were flooded with clips of Marie Dalston's testimony, Cruz's mic drop moments, and Pelosi's shifting expressions. One viral post showed Cruz slowly flipping through pages labeled evidence with the caption, when the receipts come with interest. Hashtag Pelosi exposed, hashtag Cruz on fire. But the biggest bombshell was yet to come. As the hearing prepared to adjourn for the day, Cruz turned to the gallery where a man in sunglasses and a gray hoodie had been seated quietly the entire time. "Mr. Chair," Cruz said, "tomorrow's session will include a testimony from Jason Ramirez, a former compliance officer for the Pelosi Victory Fund. He has audio recordings." The entire room collectively inhaled. Pelosi's composure cracked completely now. She whispered something to her attorney. Urgent. Panicked. But Cruz wasn't done. "And according to Mr. Ramirez's sworn affidavit," he continued, "there are conversations where Speaker Pelosi discusses pay-to-play contributions and strategies to bypass FEC oversight." The session ended with stunned silence. The swamp wasn't just rattled, it was flooding. The following morning, the sun hadn't even crested fully over the Capitol dome when news trucks lined the block. Something about this day felt different. The tension was thicker. The city itself seemed to be holding its breath. Inside the committee chamber, Jason Ramirez, former compliance officer for the Pelosi Victory Fund, was already seated and sworn in. No press photos were allowed inside, but that didn't stop the world from watching via live stream. Nearly 12 million Americans tuned in online. Ted Cruz didn't waste a second. "Mr. Ramirez," he began, "please state your position and responsibilities at the Pelosi Victory Fund." "I was in charge of reviewing all financial disclosures, donor communication, and ensuring federal election compliance," Ramirez said clearly. "Until I discovered we weren't just bending the rules, we were obliterating them." The room fell silent. "Explain," Cruz said. Ramirez reached into a manila folder and produced a small black flash drive. "This contains 4 audio recordings from private meetings in the summer of 2023, 2 with Speaker Pelosi present, 1 with her campaign manager, and 1 with a Chinese liaison operating under Gene Long Ventures." He plugged the drive into the official committee playback system. Cruz turned to the chair. "With permission, we will now play Exhibit A." The recording began. Ambient sound of glasses clinking, light music in the background. Male voice, "Madam Speaker, our associates are prepared to contribute 5, maybe 6 million. We'd need assurances on the renewable energy legislation." Female voice, Pelosi's, "That's doable. We've got language drafted. Just make sure the checks are bundled and avoid direct transfers to the PAC. Use the education nonprofit. We've set up the 501c3 for this very reason." Gasps. Audible gasps filled the chamber. This wasn't just suspicion. This was strategy. Cruz paused the playback. "Would you recognize that voice as Speaker Pelosi's?" Ramirez nodded. "I sat in dozens of meetings with her. That's her." Cruz turned to the stunned speaker. "Would you like to deny it?" Pelosi didn't answer. He played another clip. Pelosi's voice again, "We can't have anyone trace this back. That's why we're routing through the Silicon Valley Fund. They owe me favors." Cameras caught members of the committee, including some Democrats, glancing around nervously. Cruz turned deadly serious. "This isn't a political smear. This is racketeering. This is foreign collusion. This is pay-for-play at the highest level of our government." Even the chair leaned in. "I request the Department of Justice immediately open a criminal investigation into Speaker Nancy Pelosi's financial and legislative activities," Cruz said, slamming the gavel of moral justice onto the desk harder than the actual gavel ever could. The gallery erupted. Not in applause, but in disbelief. Pelosi's attorney whispered frantically into her ear, but the damage was done. A third recording played. Pelosi's voice, laughing softly. "We've been doing this dance for years, Jason. Nobody touches me. I'm Nancy damn Pelosi." The committee chair had heard enough. He leaned into his mic. "This hearing is now adjourned pending legal escalation. The full committee will forward all evidence to the Department of Justice and House Ethics Committee immediately." Pelosi stood, lips trembling. But she didn't storm out. She didn't shout. She knew. She was finished. As Cruz packed his papers, a journalist from the New York Post shouted out, "Senator Cruz, is this the end of Pelosi's political career?" He paused, looked straight into the camera, and said, "No one is above the law, not even the icons." Hours later, a joint press release from the DOJ confirmed they were launching a formal investigation. Marie Dalston and Jason Ramirez were placed under federal protection. By week's end, 3 of Pelosi's top aides resigned, and donors began withdrawing. Fox News declared it the scandal of the century. CNN, reluctantly, admitted, "There are serious legal concerns Nancy Pelosi must now face." For Ted Cruz, it wasn't just a political victory. It was personal. It was principled. It was the kind of reckoning Washington hadn't seen in decades. And for America, it was a sign. The swamp wasn't invincible after all.